and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And tonight we got a great show for you. We're going to be talking about Hiram Abiff. I don't know if I said that right, but that's who we're going to be talking about. Man, and there's a lot of stuff going on with that. Anyway, who was this guy? Why are we going to learn about him tonight? Anyway, well, it has to do with a little bit of Freemasonry and all kinds of other stuff. But I'd all like to welcome you to the show and thank you for coming on. And if you see this shirt here, it says Beyond Truth with Nina and Robert. Go over to the Streamlabs store. Link it is in the description below. Check that out. Buy yourself one of those nice shirts. Beyond Truth. People will be asking, what? Support the show and get us going here and check us out. We'll be on Rumble for that. Beyond Truth on Rumble only. So with that, let's just get started with this, show. Anyway, we're diving into Freemasonry. It's kind of a intriguing. The Hiramic legend. Yeah, the story of Hiram Abiff. Let's go with that. Abiff was presented by the Manly P. Hall, and I got his book. Where did I put this book? Oh, yes, within arm's reach, of course. I got the Manly P. Hall book right here. So this is the book we're researching out of. So if you don't have it, go get this. Lots to read there. Keep you busy for plenty of days. Anyway, it's the secret teaching of all ages. And the legend is more than just a tale told. So Paul reveals it as a symbolic drama of death and resurrection. Well, you know who else was resurrected. It has a lot of rich hidden wisdom. And so why is this story about an ancient guy, builder, murder, resurrection, all this stuff going on? Why does this hold so much power? The secrets are concealed in its symbols. And most importantly, what can it teach us, modern seekers as we are on our spiritual path? It makes you wonder. Well, we're going to cover the tell of the legend, and we're going to decode the key symbols. Hiram Abiff, the three ruffians, the Temple of Solomon. We're going to look into that. The lost word, and the Arcadian sprig, and explore some other things too. We're going to connect the legend to Masonic rituals, and we're going to draw some spiritual myths and death, resurrection of Osiris of Egypt to Jesus and Dionysus. We're going to share Paul's insights on all this too. Well, and then we're going to finally figure it all out at the end, and we'll talk a little bit about it. Let's start out with the retelling of the tale of Hiram Abiff. And of course, I'm going to share my screen. We'll go with this, share, of course. Who is this guy? There we go. Ta-da! Let's go a little bigger. Make it bigger. Hiram Abiff. Anyway, there we go. Let's find out who this guy is. And our story is set in a glorious time of King Solomon, the builder of an everlasting house, the Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem. And King Solomon, renowned for his wisdom, is allied with Hiram, king of Tyre, to create a temple of unparalleled splendor, an aid to his great work. The Tyrrhenian king sends his finest craftsman, Hiram Abiff. As you can see, he looks like an architect, right? And let's see. The widow's son, a master's architect without equal. Hiram Abiff is not just a skilled artisan in metal, stone, and wood, but an appointed grand master of the dynastic architects, an ancient fraternity of builders. Under Hiram's direction, the temple constructed proceeds a sublime a harmony, which every stone is hewn and set in silence, fitting perfectly without a hammer. Wow, that's some kind of building. That's how they built things years ago. They really knew what they were doing. Today, man, you just put up more braces and hammer no more nails. But the temple nears completion. Troubles are brewing and within the ranks. Hiram has organized the workmen into grades: apprentice, fellow crafts, master masons, each with his own passwords and secrets, each man rewarded according to his skill. That seems fair. This merit-based system breeds envy among a few of the unworthy craftsmen. Why should they labor patiently through the degrees when they could steal the master's secrets now? So, see, it tells you that there are some secrets, and even those guys wouldn't tell each other on how to build stuff. And that's probably why we don't even know how to build that stuff today, because somebody didn't pass down the secrets. Three fellow crafters hatch a dangerous plot. They will force Hiram Abiff to divulge the secret master's word, password of the master mason, which carries the promise of a master's rank and wage. Yeah, I guess that's how you move up the line. You just get the secret password and you get paid more. Huh. How about that? They choose their moment at high noon. Oh, when else would they choose it? Just like in the freaking movies, right? Change this to that. It's always something, isn't it? Anyway, they choose their moment at high noon when Hiram routinely enters the unfinished Holy of Holies to pray. These three ruffians named Jubala, Jubola, and Jubilam, go figure, the Three Stooges, station themselves at the temple's three gates, armed with brutal tools of the trade, as the unsuspecting Hiram attempts to depart the temple. At the south gate, he is accosted by the first ruffian, Jubala, who brandishes his 24-inch gauge measuring rule. Jubala demands the master's word. Hiram, though unarmed, courageously refuses to betray his trust, and in a flash of anger, Jubala strikes Hiram on the throat with the mason's rule, a violent blow to the very organ of speech, silencing the words he seeks. Well, that was really kind of stupid. Don't you think? Now you need him to speak the words, but he can't talk. Huh. Yeah, well, I guess that makes a lot of sense. See how this crooks can be the stupidest people. Well, Hiram is wounded and staggers to the west gate, only to be confronted by Jubilo. Now, wielding a sharp builder's square, Jubilo likewise insists on the secret word, and again Hiram refuses. The second assailant strikes Hiram on the chest with the square, collapsing his breath. Well, now he can't speak, nor can he breathe. Well, that's really smart. Yeah. I can't catch my breath, so I can't really talk because my throat is hurting so much. Now, really hurt, Hiram desperately lunges forward to the east gate. There stands the third conspirator, Jubilam, grasping his heavy mallet. When Hiram will not yield, even now, Jubilam brings the gavel down with the force, striking Hiram in the forehead. Wow. And the great master falls dead, martyred for his integrity. Well, you're not getting the secret word now, that's for sure. He's dead. Yeah. And you're still stuck where you are. Something to be learned by this. I guess that's kind of, I would just say that's kind of like the Three Stooges. And anyway, um, now is this story true or not? I don't know, but there's probably something to learn about all of this. The cowardly trio quickly realizes their enormity of their crime. They have slain the only possessor of the Master's word and endangered the completion of the temple. In the dead of the night, they carry Hiram's body out of the city to a lonely hill beyond the temple's brow, a place later identified as Mount Morah. There, under the cover of darkness, they hastily bury the corpse in a shallow grave to mark the undisturbed grave. They plant a simple sprig of Arcadia. Huh. Well, see, there you go. Well, you gotta mark the grave. So, when you figure it all out, they gotta mark the grave. And wouldn't you know it, right? So you know where the dead body's buried. So you can what? Come back and dig him up and he's gonna talk again? Maybe you'll resurrect him and you can finish building the temple. These people. There under the okay, so they plant a sprig of Arcadia. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Arcadia, an evergreen branch. Nevertheless, whatever I'm saying, I can never pronounce these words. But an evergreen branch into the earth as a beacon, should they need to locate the body again. See what? I knew it. They're going to try to resurrect them or something. With their grim deed done, the murderers flee, intending to escape to distant lands. Now you don't have a job. You didn't get the word. The temple ain't getting finished, and the guy is dead. And you bury him in a shallow grave. That is so smart. This could be a movie. Well, anyway, ironically, their plans fail, and the port is closed. Go figure. It was probably on a Sunday or something. Their flight is thwarted, and the three ruffians are eventually captured. Go figure. They probably went down to the bar and said, "Guess what we did? Ha ha ha! Hiram ain't gonna speak no more." Anyway, upon confession of their guilt, King Solomon orders their execution. Yeah, well, that's what they did in those days, delivering justice for the foul murder. Meanwhile, back at the temple, Hiram's absence at noon does not go unnoticed. When the master does not appear to supervise the work, confusion and dread spread among the workers, and King Solomon himself becomes alarmed. He soon learns that Hiram was the last seen entered the sanctum, but never came out. Fearing the worst, Solomon dispatches a search parties of craftsmen in groups of 3 to scour the countryside for the beloved master. After anxious days, one search party ascends a hill and discovers a startling sign, an Acacia branch oddly jutting from the ground. Digging below the evergreen sprig, they uncover the body of Hiram Abiff. Hastily interred, word is sent to King Solomon and that the worst has happened and the master is dead. The guiding light of the temple has been extinguished. Solomon mourns deeply, but he also recalls that with Hiram's death, something precious has been lost. In the Masonic lore, Hiram alone knew the master words, the secret name or password said to impart wisdom and power. Solomon fears that the lost word of the craft died with Hiram. Indeed, in the legend, it is said that the first word uttered upon raising Hiram's body became a substitute for the true master's word, to be used until that genuine word might be rediscovered in the future. Determined not to let evil triumph completely, Solomon oversees an attempt to raise Hiram from the grave symbolically, if not literally. The recovery team tries to pull Hiram's body from the earth using the grips of the first and second degrees, the apprentice and the fellow craft, but the corpse slips from their grasp, and the lifeless flesh cannot uh, respond. Finally, Solomon and his men form a chain and raise the fallen master. Using the strong grip of a master mason, also called the lion's paw, miraculously, um, Hiram is lifted up out of his grave just as the sun, after the solstice, rises, go figure, and from its lowest point. Although the true master's word is not recovered at that moment, a new word is adopted until which was lost shall be found. The crime is avenged, and the builders return to their labor, and the Temple of Solomon is eventually completed, though forever incomplete in one respect. The master builder is gone, and the wisdom he carried to the grave remains a secret to be sought by future generations. So, with him, poor Hiram died, and with them, was he the only one to know that word? I don't know. Well, the Hiram legend is dramatized in Freemasonry and explained by Manly P. Hall in its story and the gravity of ritual drama, betrayal, loss, and the hope of restoration. In Masonic lodges, this drama is indeed acted out in the initiation of the Master Mason. The candidate himself is figuratively slain and raised. So Hiram's saga lives on. What about the lesson? Well, to grasp that, we must step back and examine the symbols of the legend, each key to be hidden to the truth. Anyway, so the handshakes, we got the handshakes, the pulling out of the grave, all these good things. Let's see what it says here in the notes. It's rich in symbols, allegory. It has 5 major symbols that we're going to uncover here, and the divine spark. Hiram Abiff himself is a central symbol. That's the first one. Who or what is Hiram in the grand allegory? Hall calls the word murder, master, type of cosmic martyr, a crucified spirit of good, the dying God whose mystery is celebrated throughout the world. In other words, Hiram is an archetype of a divine spark, the godly principle that suffers in the world of ignorance and vice. The very name Hiram Abiff, all notes, can be interpreted to the meaning of my Father, the universal spirit, one essence, 3 in aspect. This suggests a trinity of sorts. Yes, hinting that Hiram represents a unity of spiritual forces. Well, I don't know. I don't come to think of it. Who knows? Anyway, the idea I'm thinking is that, poor Hiram there. He tried. I mean, he was the master architect. And was he really the architect? I don't know. He was. I don't know. I guess he was a symbol of. But the thing is, they still finished building the temple. He oversaw Solomon's temple. So does the divine spark within us try to build a temple of character and wisdom? Paul even equates Hiram with the Christ principle in man. To the mystic, a Christian Mason, Hiram represents the Christ who is in 3 days or degrees raised from the temple of his holy body. Like Christ, Hiram is the innocent, noble figure slain by ignorance and selfishness. Thus, Hiram Abiff can be seen as an indwelling higher nature of man. He still got killed, and he didn't come back from the grave because they never resurrected. Well, they resurrected him, the body, but still, the part is an attitude to truth, beauty, and the goodness in which is sacrificed by our lower impulses. His martyrdom is the tragedy of the soul submerged in materialism. This resurrection signifies the soul's potential to rise again. All it tells me is that, hey, when these thugs just give up the freaking word, just give the word. Or was the word controlling some magical power? You know, we talk about demons and the control, and if you know their name, you have their control. Maybe that's how the temple is getting built. Or is this story just a made up allegory story, you know, like a comic book? You know what I'm saying? So who knows? Hall is also connects Hiram to the concept of dying and raising the god. Now Hiram was no god. He just, maybe he knew the word that. Anyway, the murdered master, he writes, is the dying god whose mystery is celebrated throughout the world. I don't know if he'd celebrate. I think he'd be sad. We will soon explore how Hiram's story parallels those Osiris, Jesus, and others. But the point here is Hiram Abiff is not just a man in the story. He is an eternal idea. He is a hero soul that dies to the world and is reborn in glory. Even truth seeker, in a sense, is Hiram in the his own spiritual drama. As we continue, we ask yourself, could Hiram Abiff be a symbol of something living in you? That's right. In me, in you, blah, blah, blah. Right? So think about it like that. Shut up. Chickens in the house. If Hiram the three ruffians. Let's talk about the three ruffians. Like I said, this sounds like, the more I read on this, it sounds like it's it's like out of a cartoon. One of them, you know, or one of those stories. You know, if Hiram represents a higher self or spirit of good, then his killers represent the forces that oppose and kill that spirit. I think we all have some of those in our lives. The legend names that Jubala. Now, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, really? These three guys got together. Maybe they were brothers. And their mother just had no other name to name them. The names Jubala, Jubalo, and Jubilum. Wow, they were really stuck. But Hall encourages us to look past their exotic names and see universal qualities. He identifies the three ruffians in our inner failings, that societal evils, especially Hall, states that the murders can be seen as ignorance, superstition, and fear. Possibly. Ignorance is darkness of the mind, the lack of true knowledge. Superstition is a rational belief of prejudice, misused, or spiritual longing. Fear, especially fear instilled by oppressive authorities, or fear of the unknown, which paralyzes the soul. Anyway, something's always. If Hall's Christian mythic analogy, Hiram is the Christ within, is murdered by Caesar's agent, the Saradin, and the mob, which corresponds to the state of the church and the ignorant crowd, all forces that historically have oppressed truth. Allegorically, that's what it is. These become ignorance, superstition, dogma, false religious zeal without understanding, and the fear, the power of tyrannical states of our lower nature. Think of how ignorance and superstition and fear operate in our own lives. They can kill the best of us inside. And I think that's what happens. You know, you don't, you know, it's not just fear. You know, at least in my thoughts, if you have to go with fear, superstition, and ignorance, they got to go together, because if you have fear of something, you're ignorant of that something. And then, or you may have a superstition of something, like throwing salt over your shoulder. Well, you know how that goes. Or you're ignorant of it. Like, hey, you know, I can't go in the water because I might drown. But the water is only 2 foot deep. Well, I still might drown. Or, fear of flying. Well, very few people, the planes crashed, but I'm fearful of flying. Well, the odds of your plane crashing is very nil to none. You probably make it through. Um, so anyway, now we get into Freemasonry, which teaches that the Mason must fight these ruffians. In the legend, Hiram refuses to yield to their demands, symbolizing unwavering fidelity to the truth, even under the threat. See, it's something we don't get taught nowadays. So if a ruffian criminal comes and wants to steal your stuff, we are taught to just give them the stuff so they don't kill you, because your life is worth more than anything else. You can replace material things. That's what we're taught now. But if it was a word or a phrase, say your password to your computer or your phone, would you give up your password if somebody was, threatening your life? Would you give up your password? Because password isn't like material. It is material. It gets you the material. Kind of like it got Hiram, to build the temple with this magic, the magic word to make the temple get built. So then the question is would you give up your password? Is it like giving up your money or your wallet or, whatever you got? Here, I'm going to hijack your car, and you go, okay, here's the keys, just let me live. But if they said, hey, I want your password, do you give up your password to your bank account? Do you give up your password to your computer so they can check it out? I don't know. That's a good question. So anyway, let's move on. It says here that Paul reminds us that the outer world, too, that these ruffians often triumph temporarily. Yes, evil temporarily triumphs, and then it must be set back in balance. Opposites, balancing of the world. If you're a criminal, you can only be a criminal so long, and then it catches up with you. The virtuous people like Oppius and Socrates were persuaded and slain by the ignorant forces of their times. See, so you got other people who are getting slow. It's always the same story. Makes you wonder if any of them are true. Well, like Hiram, he will be raised again for a seeker of the message to retain steadfast against the internal enemies. The ruffians might wound us, but we will not give them the master word. We must not give them our inner secret light. So, yeah, exactly. Now, we're going to move on to Solomon's Temple. Temple of Solomon. I got that here somewhere. So we're going to move on to this. Temple of Solomon. Ooh. Okay. The setting of the legend of King Solomon's temple. Well, this was a temple they were said to build with no hammer or nails or nothing. Block upon block to sit there. Best temple ever made. Where is it today? That's what I want to know. The setting of the legend of King Solomon's temple is a magnificent edifice built to honor the divine. On one level, the temple is a historic building described in the Bible with great detail, and the literary project Hiram was working on. But in allegory, the Temple of Solomon takes on a far deeper meaning, and Hall and other Masonic philosophers see the temple as a symbol of a grand work of spiritual building, either the construction of one's soul self or ideal society. And I'm thinking, so was the temple ever constructed? Maybe not, because look how big it must have been. According to these pictures, I mean, maybe it was huge. And, who could tear that down? Who's tearing that down? You know what? I don't know. It's a lot of work to build it and a lot of work to take it down. So Sir Francis Bacon, all speaks of him, um, believed that a hand in Masonic lore described a utopian society in New Atlantis, using the metaphor of Solomon's temple. Joseph Fort Newton observed that in Bacon's vision, the temple was not a house at all, but a name of an ideal state. Now, see, that makes sense. That's why we can't find Solomon's temple. I'll ask, it is not true that the Temple of Freemasonry is also emblematic of the condition of society. Well, if that's the case, our temple is falling down right now. In other words, the Temple of Solomon can be symbolized as a human civilization at its best, a harmonious world or temple of universal brotherhood, built by many craftsmen working together. And that's kind of true. The world works together to make everything work. And when things break down, the world goes into chaos. Hence, during like wars or famines or things like that. Anyway, all people are united in wisdom and peace, which is the very thing that King Solomon invokes when he says shalom, peace. The Hiramic legend then can be read as a story of civilization's construction and the loss of its guiding vision and the hope of its renewal. And I guess I would like that part best. I guess maybe that's the way a good way to look at it, is because Hiram was the vision building the temple. He was the guy that joined everybody together to build the temple. And when he was gone, the vision was gone, and civilization was going to crumble. But somehow King Solomon came along and he managed to finish it up. I don't know, or did it never get finished up after that? It seems like when you have one individual that can bring everybody together, everything goes to pot when they get rid of that guy, or everybody's trying to get rid of, or some people are trying to get rid of that guy. And when they get rid of that guy or that idea, then everything falls apart. So we're talking about one person's, even yourself, your own mind, your soul, your temple, your human spirit. Okay, so just as Hiram's work was to adorn the perfect temple in Jerusalem, our task is to perfect the temple of our life. Stone pillars can be seen as virtues and facilities that need polishing and placement. Just like your body, if you don't take care of it, it falls apart. And the Holy of Holies, the innermost chamber, might correspond with the enlightened heart. Because there's a lot of people out there that aren't enlightened. They just go through day to day, and they seem mindless. And Masonry speaks of building the inner temple as the great works of life. The inner temple, your great works of life. What did you do in life? Are you going to get up and say, well, your last day on earth, and you say, well, what are they going to put in my gravestone? He worked a lot. Yeah, that's kind of it. What did he do? Well, he didn't have any kids. He went to work. He didn't have much for friends. He didn't do anything. Yep, that's your great works. Or did you make friends, see the world? Did you do more? It's kind of something on that order. You know what I'm saying? You can't just say, I did nothing in life. Who wants to do nothing in life? Nobody wants to do nothing in life. Anyway, that's the whole point. What's the point of going through life and not having a point to it? So let's talk a little bit about this Freemasonry thing real quick. And well, let's see, what is a Mason? Because we keep talking about Masons. So a Mason is a man and a brother who treats you or the level and acts upon the square. The truth is his compass, and he is ever plumb. He has a true grip on all that is right. He is loyal to his order. And whatever his degree is he is a master of himself in the lodge of life. He wears unstained and unstained the white, the lambskin of the innocent. From his initiation as a entered apprentice, he travels ever east towards the light of wisdom until he receives the divine password that admits him into the infallible presence of the eternal, supreme grand master of the universe, God. Well, there you go. And that is kind of interesting. So this is the Masonic thing. Here's your sprig, the Credius sprig, your compass. This is the compass, and this is your level. So now you know why the three symbols are there. I never really knew why they were there. I just thought they were the tools of the trade. I had no idea what the leaf thing was. So, you got to put the pieces together. That's just kind of how it goes, And let's see, where are we going from here? The interpretation. That's the Magnus Opus. The magnet. What is Magnus Opus? But is a great alchemical work of transforming the base human into spiritual gold. Yeah. So, people have been learning how to trade lead into gold. Well, it's not turning lead into gold. It's turning yourself from just a lump of mush into an enlightened being. I guess reading of Hiram Abiff is the personification of Philosopher's Stone, which kind of makes sense. Okay, now we get into other fascinating things. Let's get down into here. Universal agent. Without the gold of enlightenment, cannot be attained. So, what is a gold? It's wisdom. Wisdom, knowledge, experiences. You can't transform yourself if you sit in the corner with your dunce hat on. You can't just come home and turn on the football game and think you're enlightened. Well, the temple symbolizes the accumulation of spiritual transformation. Meditate. Think about yourself. Some people just don't think outside the box. They don't think where they're at or who they're with or what they're doing. They just like mindless drones. And I'm sure some of you are like that sometimes. And when you got enlightened, you went, oh, this is how it works. This is what I'm doing. And then you wonder, why am I doing what I'm doing? Anyway, it's fascinating, and even the measurements of the temple and events around it carry mystical numbers. For example, the temple stood 33 years in the splendor before it was destroyed. And 33. Didn't another guy live 33 years before he was put up on a cross? No. And if we go there, see the lost world of hidden meaning, the correlation of the allegory and the symbolism of the Bible, that of a Freemason and an exposition of the secret doctrine. See, this is what we're getting into. So we got King David reigned 33 years in Jerusalem. Go figure. And there are 33 degrees in the Scottish Rite Masonry, echoing the 33rd degrees of, a human spine. The human spine is 33. We got 33. You can't make this stuff up, people. Yeah, 33 vertebrae in your human spine. And the age of Christ at the crucifixion, of course, we talked about that in a second, that corresponds with the hint that the temple is also a cipher for the human body and the soul. See, now things start to make sense. Well, linking a microcosm into a microcosm, or macrocosm into a microcosm, macro. Anyway, the number 33 must be important for some. Well, it's telling you, we are the temple. See, the 33, it's anyway. In the Psalm, Solomon's temple is a legend, is far more than an ancient building. It is a project of humanity. Whether the project is a building, an ideal world, constructing one spiritual character, the tragedy that this project is interrupted. The master builder struck down. But the legend holds a promise too. And work can be picked up because apparently they finished the temple. The master can be raised, and the temple can ultimately be finished. All believe that Freemasonry are engaged in rebuilding the temple, both in the inner temple and the societal temple, according to the cosmic plan. What kind of temple are you building for your life? Really? What are you doing? And what tools are you using? So ask yourself those questions. You can't just, build a temple. What are you building? What temple are you building? Why are you building it? And what kind of, your life is the temple. Your body, your spine telling you this. This is the little secret stuff we're talking about. The secret quest, the lost world. When Hiram is struck down, he takes to the grave the master's word, a secret password or name of a god that was known only to him and King Solomon. The word which Hiram refused to divulge under duress is a symbol of hidden truth or divine power. Its loss signifies a profound spiritual loss to humanity, the fading of ancient wisdom and the silencing of sacred truth. Yep. I mean, wasn't it kind of ridiculous that he hit him in the throat, they hit him in the chest, and then they hit him in the head? Why didn't they knock him in the leg, torture him a little bit? Were they that dumb? Well, Hall emphasizes this concept, and we have to go. So Hiram carried to his grave the lost word, and when spoken, raises all the life to power and glory. But Hiram couldn't speak the word, and now he's in his grave. Okay, what is Freemasonry? Freemasonry rituals dramatize the loss and recovery of the delicate way Hiram is raised up, and anyway. So we're going to skip that. The sprig. What is the sprig? That little piece of sprig, the leafy thing, Let's get back to that. What does the sprig mean? Yep, there we go. The sprig. Yes, the sprig. Okay. The little branch of Arcadia placed on his makeshift grave. It seems like a minor detail, but Acacia, also known as a thorny shittia tree in the Bible. It is one of the most important symbols in the Master Mason degree. Hall notes that its presence and Masonic tradition give it a profound meaning. The sprig of Arcadia is an evergreen plant and is such as been a timeless emblem of immortality. The Arcadia's evergreen leaves signify the life priest even through death, or persist, that life persists even through death, and that the soul, like an evergreen, does not wither when the winter is immortality comes. So see that again too. It's telling you that you never really die. You just move on and you live again and again and again. According to the Masonic teachings, when Hiram's body was buried, Arcadia marked the spot and thus became the symbol of Hiram's martyrdom, the mortality of the soul. The ancient Egyptian lore, Arcadia is sacred and associated with the resurrection of Osiris in the Hebrew Bible. Osiris. Let's take a look at Osiris. Who is Osiris? Osiris. I got Osiris here somewhere. I'm pretty sure. Osiris. Oh, that's the other guy. No, is this Osiris? Anyway, Osiris. I think this is Osiris right here. Or is that the other guy? Anyway. Oh, no, this is Osiris. Sorry, wrong one. Osiris, Egyptian god of death. Go figure. Okay, so we're talking about immortality. And again, it goes back to the Egyptians. Anyway, the lore of, the Ark of the Covenant, the Hebrew Bible, the holiousness and endurance. By planting a sprig of Arcadia, the legend tells us that the story isn't over after the grave. Life will have a rebirth. Oh, resurrection, or multiple lives. Indeed, it was the site of the green sprig that altered Solomon's men to where alerted him to where Hiram was buried. See, these criminals. See, this story can't be true because, well, I shouldn't say it's a made-up story. Because what kind of idiot criminals would bury somebody in a shallow grave and then, let's plant something on it, like a little marker, so we know where to go back in case we want to recover the body. He's dead. You bury the body, throw it in the river, let it go down. Whatever, something. It's like a signpost for resurrection. Yeah, that's what it all boils down, right? Okay. Anyway, the Masonic apron design, he describes an Arcadia branch with 7 sprigs. It is drawn, symbolizing the 7 life centers, perhaps chakras of man. Right below it are a skull and crossbones, reminding the initiate that the spiritual nature attains liberation after the physiological death of man. Okay, let's see if we got that one. Yes. Okay. So there's our sprigs. This kind of does look like something, doesn't it? Huh. Reinforces the idea through death in the lower self and higher gains of eternal morality. In practice, Masonic rituals, a candidate may be given a sprig of Arcadia in the climax of the Master Mason ceremony. It is often explained as an emblem of faith and immortality of the soul, and a promise that just as Arcadia stays green, so does the soul live on after the body's death. It also represents innocence and purity. Hiram's character was pure in heart. He never corrupted the word, and the Arcadia on his grave testifies to the innocence and the hope that truth will bloom again from the soil of sacrifice. So there you go. Now we're going to move on. The third degree of Masonry, also known as the Master Mason degree. In the sense, every Mason who has ever been through this degree has personally walked the footsteps of Hiram Abiff. Would you do this? I don't know. Man, I think we should do it in our own way, but the ritual is meant to impress spiritual truths in the candidate's soul thought and dramatic experiences, not just words. Now just picture this. A dimly lit lodge room arranged as the interior of Solomon's temple. The candidate for Master Mason, having proved himself in earlier degrees, prepares for this drama, with the lodge brothers taking on various roles, including the 3 ruffians and King Solomon. The stimulates the events of the legend. The candidate, often blindfolded, to be in the dark, is made to attempt the journey and is confronted in turn by figures representing Jubila, Jubilo, and Julblum. Say that 3 fast times. He experienced the demands of the secret, his own steadfast refusals, guided by the ritual prompters, and the symbolic blows, usually delivered in a ritualistic, non-harmful manner. But yeah, because if it was on a harmful manner, he'd be dead by the time you get done. At the climax, the candidate either plays dead or is momentarily laid out as if in a grave. The lodge room falls into a mournful silence, reacting the mournful fall of the fallen master. See, you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me that, see, they're just, it's like the Jesus thing where he carries the cross and people act that out, and then they put him on the cross, and they, or the thing with the Bethlehem, oh, I've seen those acts with the manger and the riding the donkey and the play, it's like, so it's just another way of acting this all out, and 50% of the people don't know what's going on. They just, ooh, it's cool. So you got to look into this stuff a little more. The plays, the rituals are kept on for society to remember. That's what I'm gonna, it's being raised up and reborn, or dying and reborn one way or another. It's always about death and resurrection. So Hiram's dramatic strongly parallels the ancient Egyptian mystery play of Osiris, another one of those guys. And we got an Osiris one here somewhere. We got the Osiris guy. Back to Osiris. Wasn't he the guy that, they died and they cut him up into pieces and scattered him all over the place. And then they went back and got his pieces and, put him back together, so yeah, see, and got his pieces. They put him back together. There's Osiris in the middle, about half put together. So anyway, well, let's see. What's this here? It says, when, and Osiris was killed and then he was restored. And then we have Greek stories of Dionysus, or the demeanor, also has a symbolic death and rebirth to gods, and initiates by participating in the Hiramic legend. Dionysus. I don't know if I got a Dionysus here. I got a Dionysus. I know I got a Dionysus. This is Dionysus. So, of course, we got in Greek legend, we have Dionysus. He was a guy who could also turn water into wine. You see, he's got the little grapes in his hands, and he's holding the grapes, he's making the wine, and whatever. So if you don't know who Dionysus is, that's him. So let's see, Osiris. Let's read some of these things here. We got Osiris. Is a wise king god of ancient Egypt lore. He was tricked and being slain by his jealous brother, Typhon. His body was sealed in a coffin and later dismembered into pieces and scattered. Osiris's wife, his sister, Isis, searched and eventually recovered most of the pieces of the body and reassembled him. And through her magic, and maybe Anubis and Thoth, I think we had that one. Just had that one a second ago. That one. See? Horus, Cyrus, and Isis. So they got together and they put it back together. Put it that way. However, his resurrection was celebrated as a promise that life conquers death. Initiates in the Egyptian mysteries would ritually reenact the death and resurrection. I hope they didn't cut the bodies apart. Pharaoh Well, to Hiram are clear. A good figure is betrayed by someone close and killed, his body hidden. Later is found and given new life. So it's always the same story, just different players. Come on, people. Again, we're going to go to Christianity. Same thing again. It's always the same thing. Christianity. Let's see what do we got for Christianity. There we go. You guys all recognize this guy. Crucifixion, resurrection. Jesus is a teacher of righteousness, as in betrayed by his close followers. Go figure. Always your closest friends are always the ones that throw you under the bus. Anyway, he was handed over to authorities and executed on a cross. And after 3 days, he miraculously rises from the dead, victorious over sin and death. So how is this? So it's the same as Hiram, and it's the same as Dionysus. It's the same as Osiris. All of these. Jesus rose on the third day, and Hiram's tomb was marked by Arcadia, and Jesus' tomb was found empty, marked by the faith of those who witnessed the rising Christ. Also a symbol of life conquering death. So there you go. It's still one of those things. Okay, Dionysus. Dionysus was called Barbaricus by the Romans. Might seem as unlikely parallel. First, he's the god of wine. There we go. Back to Dionysus. Yeah, he was the god of wine and ecstasy. But the Orphic tradition of Greek Dionysus, he was a dismembered god. The myth goes that the Titans tricked the infant Dionysus and tore him to pieces and devoured him. But Athena saved his heart, and Zeus, Dionysus' father, used it to revive Dionysus, even birthing him anew through Semele. Dionysus thus died and was resurrected, and thereafter he was worshipped as a god who brings new life and joy. The mysterious cults of Dionysus in the Greece involve plays and symbolic rites of death and rebirth, including themes of tearing apart and coming back to life, often mirrored, in the grapevine cycle. So there you go. The dynastic architects were semi-legend guilds of builders in the ancient world who, according to tradition, worshipped Dionysus and erected temples and theaters. By linking Hiram to them, the legend ties itself to Dionysian mysteries. So it's all linked together, people. So, Dionysus' slave, the same as Hiram, same as Osiris, and they were all brought back to life. So, in the mythologies, Hiram Abiff is an intact form of the archetype. It started out by just getting killed, and now, little by little, it just transformed them more and more and more till you finally get torn apart. Okay, so what does this story have to say to us? It says the Hiramic legend as part of a larger human story. It is a story of how goodness or divinity, when it comes to the world, often faces violent setbacks. And Osiris killed Jesus by crucifixion, Hiram and by the ruffians, but the story does not end there. Through perseverance, magic, and divine grace, the goodness rises again, offering hope of renewal to all. Paul plainly says that the Hiram story is generally admitted to be based on Osiris' cycle. He also notes that some see in Hiram a prototype of Hermes, the savior figure. The legend universally is precisely what gives it power. See, so Hermes, Trismegistus is probably the same thing. Um, Hiram is a prototype of humanity. Kind of neat. So, what did Hall say? Soul's journey, ego, death, and spiritual rebirth. Yeah, the spirit can be reborn, the ego to die, and timeless lessons of the soul. First, legend is an allegory of the human soul experience in the material world. He suggests that each of us has a divine spark, our higher self, symbolizing by Hiram, that comes into this world, and then this spark strives to beautify and harmonize in our inner temple, but it confronts the brutal forces, our lower nature, and worldly ignorance. So, yeah, I tell you, there's so much to this. Even the temples were built, to like a person. You know what I mean? So we're gonna get into that a little bit, but awaken the divine. You got to awaken your divine within while you're still alive. That's what it's basically saying. You have to have a philosophical death of your old self, and then the ego or stuff goes away, and then your inner self comes out. The inner integrity of the soul will not compromise the truth for the ego's survival. Again, we talked about this too. You got to, the ego has to die away, and then your spiritual awakening will come along. So, we were talking about the lion's grip. Lion is a symbol of strength, and it also has a tribe of Judah. The king of Solomon was of Judah. In mystical terms, it represents the higher or the will of divine power. So you got to wonder if any of these stories are true. I mean, or is it just stories to pass down, And of course, at the end, it says, the truth about Hiram is that the ending, he's dead, but, they're waiting, again, waiting. They're always waiting on this guy. Or some hero, some sort, to come back and become more, like the temple, or, to compromise. So they're waiting for the truth will rise again in the future ages. And I think that's what we're all waiting for, is some truth. Everybody's searching for the truth, but we're not looking right in front, because it's sitting on the tip of our nose, but we're looking here and we're looking there, and it's all over the place. The ego, we got to have the ego death. Then we got to have a spiritual rebirth so we can get that insight and awakening that one feels when they're born anew. I think some religions go with that. Oh, I'm a born again Christian. Well, but they don't fill you in all the rest of the stuff. You have to have your ego death in order to have your spiritual rebirth. But there's still more than that. You have to identify yourself. You have to be more. These stories are to speak to your inner self. I think that's what it is. Your higher self, and to awaken your soul from, becoming, and so you don't go from a student to a teacher. It's and then the Hiram thing is just a blueprint of spiritual alchemy. This is Jesus and Osiris and Dionysus and all of those guys. It's just a blueprint, and everybody else is. I could make up a story tomorrow and tell you, and we'll just put in new characters and add a little, fluff to it. But this is pretty much Hiram's legend. And the Masons keep that Hiram Abiff legend together. They keep it going, just like the Jesus thing. They keep the Christians keep the Jesus story going, and the Masons keep the Hiram story going, and the Egyptians keep the Osiris story going, and it goes on and on and on and on. And I bet you a buck that in the future there will be new stories. Who knows? A new hero, times gone past. Somebody will write a book and they'll be like, oh, look, it's Harry Potter and he saved the world. Or look at like the movies that we see. I guess there's no stories passed up, but like Star Wars. I swear that there's people out there that almost believe that Star Wars was a real thing. Or Harry Potter was really real. Or some of these other ones. Could they be real? No, they're not real, but they sure sound real. I mean, we know Harry Potter pretty intimately. We know what he's afraid of. We know where he's going. We know Luke, you are my father, kind of thing. Or did he say that? Anyway, Luke is, he's calling Darth Vader, he's my father, the dark figure, surrender to me, he says, become like me. And Yoda's saying, the opposite, be one with the Force will be one with you. So who do you listen to? Was this all real? Was it made up? It's based on the same story. We can see the images, the shadows of these stories in every story out there. I think we all have to turn to that and just recognize that these stories are telling you something over and over and over again. Anyway, let's call it a night with that. Thank you everybody for joining me tonight. It's been really good. Remember to go out and do something nice for yourself and for your neighbor and your friends. Because you got to be more than you really are. Awaken that inner self. Get reborn. Do you have to turn to a religion? Not really. Yeah, you can just be reborn yourself. The awakening, getting your eyes to open up to see what's really around you. Remember, Beyond Truth, right here. Beyond Truth. Go buy your shirt. Join us over on Rumble. The channel's pretty popular over there. Remember, it's a good thing to go over to the Rumble and check that stuff out. YouTube censors us way too much. So with that, remember everybody, go out, be that frequency you want to receive, everyone. Love you all. Peace, everybody.